welcome to Lyra. I'm going to be doing a video today about what it was like living in the Lyran or Lyrian, however you want to say it, constellation. And first of all, I'm going to give you a bit of information. So Lyra is a constellation that you can see quite clearly in the northern hemisphere. And Vega is the star, and a star is a sun in another part of the universe. So in the northern hemisphere, the first star that you can see that's the brightest in the sky is Vega, which is the star that used to be the sun for the planets that were surrounding in the Lyran constellation, which is shaped like a harp in the sky if you're interested in stargazing. And I'm going to give you a bit of information about what it would have been like to... I've been asked by one of you to do another video on what it was like living in or we'll call it Lyra because there are planets that are habitable around the Vegan star, but we will call it Lyra so we all know what we're talking about as a planet and what it was like to live on. So think about, obviously, well, I don't know whether you know or not, but Lyra is no longer in existence because the reptilians destroyed the planet that the felines were living on, which means that a lot of Lyran Starseeds will resonate with the fact that they don't feel ever like they're at home, or they're quite nomadic in nature. They don't mind moving around because they constantly feel like they're looking for home. And a lot of you might be looking up to the brightest star in the northern hemisphere and thinking, oh my God, I miss my home like crazy. But this is where the rest of the universe benefited in a way from the reptilians destroying Lyra, because it was such a beautiful, peaceful existence that they were living in, that they would never have ventured any further than their own constellation if it wasn't for the fact that their planet was destroyed, which meant that they ventured to places like Earth, the Pleiades, Sirius A and B, and they mingled with the existing life forms there and improved their way of life and way of thinking. So it's actually all, as everything is, all done for a reason. Now, let me describe to you, because I am a Clairsentient, which means I feel things. So I haven't sort of astral planed and remembered visions of what it was like to be in Lyra, but it's just what resonates with me in how I feel about what it was like to live on Lyra. So whether or not, I mean, please leave a comment if you have had any astral planing or have actually visualized what it was like to be there. But I will tell you how I feel and what I feel it was like on the planet. I've been asked by a few of you as well what kind of life forms inhabited the island, or the planet. Well, obviously we know about the felines, which are a little bit like Avatar, not blue in colour. I hasten to add different versions of colour, like lion. The cats we have in this planet were designed and based upon the features of themselves, which is why if you look back into most religious texts, they say that God created us in his own likeness. God or aliens, was it? Maybe. I think I believe in the alien version, but of course, whatever you believe, your belief is your belief. So the felines are the ones that I resonate with the most, and there was also the avian species as well. And again, the birds and things that have been created on this planet are in the in the form of these beings. Now, to start with on Lyra, they were just creating a atmosphere and plants and animals. And at first, the intelligent life forms were just consciousness and would create, for example, lions to walk the planet, who would get their guidance from the pure consciousness, which I believe is what we currently feel are angels. So they then sort of progressed into forming more humanoid beings that could then have, more intelligence and communicate between each other. When I first watched, Avatar, I sort of really, really resonated with the planet and the people. But that is more of what Sirius A and B were like after the Lyrans moved from their planet of VEGA, or their star constellation, into other star systems, because depending on the atmosphere, depends on what colour your skin is, of course. Now, when I watch Avatar, I resonate with it, but the planet of Lyra would have looked... It wouldn't have been as much ocean as we have on Earth. It would have been more inland lakes and waterfalls. It would be a lot of beautiful forest. I would say, if you've ever been to... A lot of us have been travelling to Australia, and you've ever been to Fraser Island. In the middle of Fraser Island, it's a natural lake which is sand underneath. So it's like it's like the sea, but in a lake version. So you walk in and it's clear water, and it's fresh water, not salt water, but it's inland. So a lot of their habitable parts of the planet had lakes, mountains. Think of Earth. I mean, I'm bringing us back down to Earth, but it's beautiful here. In certain parts, when we're not overbuilt in crowded cities, it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, it's not far off what we've got here, which is what we need to remember, because it doesn't exist anymore, and we've incarnated here in order to make this Lyra, which is going to happen over the next sort of 50 years, where we create our own beautiful planet without overcrowding and overpopulating just small areas. We're going to sort of spread out and become more natural, which is what this year's pandemic has sort of taught people, that we don't need to be in these cities crowding. There's been a lot of good things that have come out of it, that people are going to start to have their own little farm somewhere, or they're going to move into the countryside and create their own livestock and vegetables and not sort of, and care more about the environment. So a lot of good things have happened. In Lyra, they wouldn't have had cities. It wouldn't have been cities as we would say. Obviously, they would be quite tribal in appearance, I would say. They would have a hierarchy. There would be a royal family and people of power. Well, not power, but people that would look after the tribe. But if they got too big, because they were successfully populating the planet, they would spread out. They wouldn't... If it got too big where they were living in that particular part, there was plenty of room and they would move, like it is here, but we don't move, we just build on top of each other. And it would be things like tree houses or little huts. If there was any rock, there would be... if you've ever been to the Canary Islands, where they cut out their houses from the rock faces, or there's another similar thing in, I think it's Turkey, where you've got, Machu Picchu, for example, in Mexico, where they've carved out their living area from an existing piece of rock, means that it would blend more into the environment, so you're not sort of affecting the environment. You would also be able to cut yourself another room if you needed to, and the stone would last for so much longer because it was all already existing, as opposed to making our own bricks, which have been cultivated out of different concoction, like a sort of scientific experiment. It's a bit like why the fact the Roman walls that are made of the flint have lasted a lot longer than some of our current bricks, which we have to keep replacing, and because it's more of the natural sources that you would be using. But of course you wouldn't want to ruin the natural sources, so you would need to spread your tribe out. If you got too big, there would have to be another hierarchy and another set of people set up to move another tribe and start a new tribe somewhere different on the planet because there was plenty of room. Like I said, they would be quite Avatar in appearance, and there would be a very peaceful atmosphere. It wouldn't. There was no conflict. Everybody lived in harmony. The way we would teach children would be in a fun way. We wouldn't have classrooms per se where you would sit and learn. They're a bit like we do, where there's lots of things that you just don't use. It would be more practical about the plants, going out in nature, finding crystals, explaining what they do, showing the children how magic can be created and how the magic of nature, really, the magic of the animals, the plants, the crystals, and how we can use it to help us. So it was more like musical art. You wouldn't, the children would have to find fun in the things that they were doing, because otherwise it's the easiest way to learn is to look and find and teach. And we would go swimming with the children. It would be a little bit like a lot of the old tribes used to be, like the way that they would speak, the language was very similar to some of the African tribal languages, where it's like a song. They're singing to one another. They're sort of I'm trying to explain it in the right way. It's, everything sort of is harmonious, like this sort of way of speaking to each other, and more like I said, more song, more music, more fun, more harmony, no arguing, and not really anybody particularly wanting, every child was thought of as your own child. If you were in a family or it wasn't part of your family, everyone would be respected, everybody would be peaceful. There'd be a lot of time to meditate, nature, candles. They wouldn't eat the animals. I mean, that's where vegan has probably come from, is VEGA, unlike we do down here. But they would maybe, if they had, the equivalent of our chickens, they would have some of the produce, such as the eggs or something like that, but they wouldn't mass produce anything. It would be more of a vegetarian, herbal way of living, but they would use byproducts from the animals as long as it wasn't harming the animals. And that's really what it was like. It was beautiful. The temperature was always warm, but not overbearing. It wasn't dangerous. There was 2 suns, and the atmosphere would be, well, the whole day would appear as if it was a sunset, if that makes sense. The sky wouldn't really be the blue that we have as much. It would be more of a pinky purple shade of very similar to the sunset, and everyone would be warm, and there would be no extreme weather conditions. There wouldn't really be snow, and there wouldn't be boiling deserts. It would all be very balanced. The way the whole of the planet was just a balance of everything, was perfect, really. And like I said, a peaceful planet. And what happened was, when the reptilians came, is very similar to what we did when we went to meet indigenous people. White people went to meet indigenous people and got sort of confused as to what was being said or the customs, and it turned into conflict. And a lot of, I would say, the most Lyran, apart from some of the African tribes, because of the Africans having to live in such a sometimes quite a difficult atmosphere, life becomes a lot more tough. So I would say the more Red Indian culture would be probably the closest we have now, not because the African cultures and the tribes aren't like this, but because the way they have to live in their environment is quite difficult because of the extreme temperatures we have and the way governments are run and the fact that they can't live in the holistic way that they want to. It causes people to become sometimes not what they want to be, which is what we're all like. I mean, we all want to be peaceful and harmonious, but sometimes life is a bit tough on Earth. So it we can come at, our bad habits can come out quite easily here, whereas on Lyra that wouldn't happen because nothing was bad. Now, when they got destroyed, only a few surviving people managed to escape. The rest of them were killed and destroyed, and they would have gone onto sort of a ship or been rescued by other species that were also peaceful, such as the Syrians. I'm trying to think, the Andromedans, who are from the Andromedan galaxy, which is outside of the Milky Way. They're quite an advanced species. There was a council set up, which is a bit like the earthly UN, which is lots of species that want to create peace and harmony in the universe. And they're all from different, it's a bit like having a lot of different people from different countries getting together, speaking different languages, but getting together on a common ground that we need to create peace and harmony over the universal plane. And they would have been space travelers, a little bit like, I mean, I'm a little bit obsessed with it at the moment, but the Starship Enterprise, Star Trek, a little bit like that. They would have sort of been going out to try and have a look at what they could try and change about the reptilian agenda, I'm so sorry, which is quite strong down here on Earth, and to sort of balance out the universe in a way. In some respects, I would say Lyran is sort of the female aspect of humanity and the reptilian is the male. And as we know, through the last sort of 100 years even, the way that females have are becoming equal has taken thousands of years. I think when we were, even going back to Roman times, women they didn't even record dates of birth for women and things like that. Now it's coming to more of a balanced, equal, and if you look back, the closest thing you will find is when the Lyrans were here last trying to help humanity was really in the Egyptian times, where you've got Bastet and Sekhmet, who are the gods that were worshipped at the time. They were Lyran, and they were trying to establish a stronghold on Earth. And this is where the fighting began, because of course you have other species trying to dominate a planet. So I think that's why they've sort of backed off, and they're doing it now from a distance with the rest of the Galactic Federation of Light, which is sort of doing it from a distance, which means that a lot of us have now incarnated on planet Earth because this is the right time to bring about some changes. It hasn't been right, during the Industrial Revolution and the wars we've had, but now things are getting to a point where we can. And that's where I'd say bring yourself back to Earth. We miss Lyra. We like to talk about it. I was going to say there was about 4 smaller moons circulating, and a moon is just a piece of granite that's, from the gravity is pulled towards the planet and circulates and causes seasons, etc. But like I say, there was no extreme cold or extreme hot. It was always a brilliantly tepid temperature. I would say maybe about 20 to 25, but with a cool breeze. So what we would imagine as perfect, but there was enough rainfall to make sure that all the plants and everything were happy, and there's more rainforest, and we treated everything with respect. So the planet treated us back with respect, which is what we really need to do here, because we have the most beautiful world here. And yes, it's more ocean than it was on Lyra, but it's still worth us changing our way and relocating and trying to give ourselves less work time and more play time, and doing the same for our children in order for us to survive and move our consciousness from a 3D atmosphere to higher levels of respect. And there are certain places, and we all need to think of ourselves as one. There's no difference between us apart from language and maybe skin colour, but we're all the same. We're all human. We're all maybe souls that have incarnated here from different places, or we've just kept reincarnating here to improve the way we are. And you'll see that if you look at your past history and what your parents went through and your grandparents and your great-great-grandparents and how life is now, things have got so much better, so much more improved. And the next 50 years, we can improve it. And the hundreds of years to come, there's a lot we can do here to make it Lyra. I mean, Lyra isn't there anymore. Sometimes you will see VEGA bright in the sky, and you can make a wish upon VEGA that, let's make Earth more like home, and we can live here happily, and everybody else and future generations can live here so happily. And the planet will balance itself out if we help balance the planet and take care of each other, take care of animals, plants. Plants are alive, animals are alive, we're all the same. We're all particles in different forms. And if we can start to realise that, then we can make planet Earth just as beautiful. And the Lyrans have chosen, to incarnate in the Pleiades, which has got a slightly different atmosphere, quite similar to Earth, but they've also incarnated on Sirius A and B, which I would say is more like the atmosphere that they have on the Avatar that you see, where their skin would change colour. And they've sort of bred with other species to make and manipulated DNA, including ours, in order to bring about change. And it's being done in a subtle way, not in an overpowering way, because as we've learned in our history, wars and conflict cause nothing but pain and anguish. And if we can learn to be a quiet warrior or a peaceful warrior and always look at how we can improve ourselves first before we try and tell anyone else how to improve themselves, then we can, whenever anyone's nasty to you, whenever anyone does something you don't like, just rather than argue, it doesn't help, just try and teach people in a non-confrontational way a nice way of living. And if they don't listen, they will carry on and karma will catch up with them. And we can make this planet just as nice as VEGA. Slightly different, but there's not, apart from there being a little bit more variety here, I would say, in the atmosphere, the temperatures, the climates, it can balance itself out, but it is going to be different. I mean, our oceans are beautiful. We need to look after those first because they're 80% of the planet, and then everything else will follow. And it's already everywhere with, things on Netflix and documentaries about how we can improve and stop overfishing and look after our oceans and stop using plastic. We need to go a little bit backward in using renewable things, because I mean, if you go back to, a few hundred years ago, you wouldn't catch people not reusing something because it was too expensive to replace, and that's what we need to go back to. So please comment, subscribe, give me any information you have about what you think Lyra was like, how you think the humanoids looked on that planet and what visions you've had, because of course we've all got different memories. And I would just like to say thank you all for watching, and have a great day, and see you all soon. God bless.